Welcome to the launch call for the Central Plant Rotation Program. In our effort to accelerate some deliverables and continue bringing value to you throughout the first quarter of 2021, we are launching the rotation portion of the central plant. That's really the heart of the central plant. It's used on chillers, it's used on pumps, and I have often lamented that I have never felt like I wrote the perfect rotation program. I've written lots of rotation programs. Some have had consideration for alarms, and some have had manual rotation selections, and they've had lots of features, but I don't feel like I'd ever put it all together into the perfect rotation program. However, now, using recommendations from ASHRAE, I think we put together something really rock solid and universally applicable to central plant control. Now, this is based on ASHRAE's peer-reviewed recommendations, so they have not yet been rubber stamped, approved, and published, but we've gone ahead and adopted them, and as we need to, as addenda are added, we will update our sequence of operations. But what they started with is pretty rock solid, and I'm really excited for you to see it, so I'm going to pass it off to Justin Javier, who's going to walk you through the program.
Thank you, David. Like David discussed, we did create a program. Our rotation program is basically our lead lag program. So all of our staging and enabling will be handled with other parts of the program. But in our lead lag program, we have three methods of rotation. Okay, our first method is our automatic runtime rotation. It may be a little bit different than what you're used to, but there is no longer a need for a weekly schedule or a daily schedule or an operator to say, let's change our rotation on these units based on runtime right now. Our automatic runtime rotation, it's going to constantly check runtimes between the systems to make sure it's in the proper order from least runtime to the most runtime. Now, having said that, I don't want you to think that we're hot swapping systems. So if chiller 1 and chiller 2 are running, it's only going to compare the running systems with each other. Likewise, all the systems that aren't running will be compared with their rotations to be set in the proper part of the order. Lockouts and chiller overrides will also affect the way the rotation works. So if something were to be locked out during this mode, it would take it out of the order. And when it's put back into service, it will be shifted to the back of the order, which would be the not running equipment. And then from there, if there's other equipment that's not running, will be compared with the runtime and placed in the proper order. Of course, there's always a manual rotation. There's always going to be a plant where the operators are going to say, I want to declare how I want my system to be, how I want the order to be. So we give you two versions. The first version we'll talk about is the adaptive manual rotation. And in this rotation, the operator can set the initial order of chillers. And the exceptions there with the lockouts and overrides, those still come into play. So if the operator had a 1, 2, 3, 4, and the lead was 1 and it went to alarm or locked out, it would take it and put it to the end of the order, 2, 3, 4, 1. And if it would put back into the service, it would stay at the back of the order. Whereas in the fixed manual rotation, if they set it as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 went into alarm, it would take out of the order momentarily while it was locked out. But if it was brought back in and the operator cleared the alarm and said it's ready for operation, if they did not change the order from 1, 2, 3, 4, it will put the chiller back in the lead position and turn that back on. So in a case like that, you might see your chiller 2 shut off and chiller 1 try to come on at the same time. So just keep in mind in fixed manual rotation, the operator really has to keep an eye on what they're doing in the system. Whereas in an adaptive manual rotation, we're preventing those hot swaps from happening. As discussed in that last slide, there are those few exceptions. The lockout, which could be manual by maintenance mode, or a latchable alarm comes in and locks it out. In those cases, the rotations do run a certain sequence, like we discussed. And the other one is if the system were to be in hand, and I don't know how your system might be out in the field, but maybe you're monitoring a local HOA, or you have a software HOA in the program. Basically, one of the recommendations from ASHRAE is anytime a system is on when it shouldn't be on, it'll be considered manually overridden on. And in that case, it places it into the lead position so that when it starts staging down numbers of equipment, that piece of equipment will not be shut off. It'll be commanded on until the lead has to be turned off. So without further ado, I want to say let's jump into our demonstration. So we're going to first start with our automatic rotation based on runtime. And here you can see our initial order is 1, 2, 3, 4. And as we start to stage these chillers up, we'll start with 1, you'll see that the chillers start up according to the order. And what I had mentioned in our PowerPoint is that the runtime comparison is constant. So it's always going to take a look and compare the runtime between the equipment. And it compares all running equipment to each other, and it compares non-running equipment to each other. So you'll see as 2 turned on, it became the lead because it had less runtime than chiller 1. And you'll notice as we go to 3 and 4 that it'll do the same. So we turn on 3, it waits for a status to come on before it'll compare. It sees the status, and now 3 is our lead, 2 is our lag 1, and 1 is our lag 2. And if we go to 4, it'll be the same. And obviously this works out best because as you turn off equipment, it'll turn off the one with the most runtime, okay? And it'll just follow that order. I do want to take it down to 2 chillers so you can see that it does also compare the non-running chillers. So let's let this lag 2 chiller get to above the lag 3 as far as runtime is concerned, and then we'll stage it down to 2 chillers. And then what we should see happen is chiller 1 will become the lag 2 chiller. And there you go. So everything is still organized in runtime order, and like I said, it's constant. So I'm going to stop here before we take the chiller required all the way down to 0 to show you how alarms and overrides work. So let's begin with alarms. And when I say alarms, I'm talking about a chiller failure alarm or a valve failure alarm. Something is going to come into the program and say, this chiller needs to be locked out, right? It could even be a maintenance mode software switch. And we have that depicted here with this chiller 3 lockout. Now for our demonstration, I'm going to shut the status off so it kind of creates a failure alarm on the chiller. So I'm going to go ahead and take that to lag 1. I'm going to force my status off. And in a few seconds, we should see the lockout come in. And here it comes. So it locks it out, and it'll turn on the next available chiller, which was chiller 1. Likewise, if I do it to the next chiller, what should happen is chiller 4 will lock out, and it'll enable chiller 2. And then chiller 1 and 2 should be compared to see who has the least runtime and set the lead. Now, as I clear these, we'll go to the back of the order, and then once they're all cleared, it'll compare runtimes to make sure that the equipment that's not running is in the proper order as well. So clear number 3, and clear number 4. Okay, so that wasn't too bad. I think it worked as planned. The next step is to kind of go over the overrides. And like I stated in the PowerPoint, we have overrides that could be a local HOA switch. It could be a software HOA switch, or it could be that the chiller is on and just will not shut off for any given reason, right? So let's take a look to see what happens when someone would just override it on. I'm going to force chiller 3 to overridden. And what happens is it sets it as the lead right away because someone has overridden the chiller on. And then it shut off the one with the most runtime. Okay. Likewise, if I had just did chiller, let's say I did, here's a neat one. Let's unforce this. This will remain as the lead because it's still on. Let's go to 3 chillers. And in this example, I'm going to have 3 chillers running. I'm going to bring it back down to 2 chillers, but we're going to keep that status on. All right. So I'm going to take our lag 2 chiller, force this on, and I am going to go down to 2 chillers. So it's going to try to stage down this chiller number 2 because it's the lag 2 chiller. So it disables it. Status remains on. It says, oh, there's an alarm. The status on chiller 2 is still on. It's overridden. So now you'll see that it's become the lead, and it's shut off chiller number 4. Okay. Hopefully that's all makes sense to you guys. Okay, so here we're going to start with our first version of the manual rotation mode. And in this mode, again, it's manual, so the operator is going to come in and they're going to set the order of how they want the chillers to run. Okay, so let's go ahead and set that order. Let's do 3, 2, 4, 1. hit OK here. Now, when they set the order, they still have to hit a rotation switch that forces the program to take the order. So if, for example, there was an errant order, like we went in and we had 2 3s, for example, and they went and clicked on the switch, the program will take that, look at it and say, oh no, that's not a good order. Let me put it back to what it was. So now it goes to 3 2 4 1, which is what we had it set to before. Okay, so there are some safeties in there to ensure that your chiller order is going to be proper, that we're not going to be having systems left out. Okay, and just like how the runtime rotation worked, you stage on the chillers and it's going to go in order of, it's going to follow the order that's there. The difference is it's not going to change based on runtime. Okay, so we turn the chillers required to 1, we stage on the lead chiller. When we go to 2, we're going to stage on the lag 1 chiller, which is 2, and it does not care about what the runtime is, so it keeps the order. We go to 3, and same thing. Now, what makes it adaptive is that we take into account the alarms and the chiller overrides. Okay, so if I were to put our lead chiller into alarm by forcing the status off, we'll see that the lead chiller, chiller 3, should be taken out of the order completely because it's locked out. And there it is. So our order is now 2 4 1, and it will not be put back into the order until it's released. And where it goes into the back of the order. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's unforce my status. Let's reset the chiller, put it back in service. And I put it in the back of the order. Let's put it to 2 chillers. And I'll show you how some of the chiller overrides work. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll take chiller 2, or chiller 1, excuse me, lag 2 chiller. And I'm going to say that this status just turned on out of the blue. Maybe someone went out in the field. We're not monitoring the HOA switch, but they just turned it on into hand. And now it shows that the chiller has been overrated on. It set that as the lead chiller, and it went and it shut off the one of the lag chillers. Okay, so it set the order 1 2 4 3. So I guess it shut off number 4. And when I take this and unforce it, this will remain as the lead chiller. Now, if there was 2 chillers that went into override, it would just place it into the lead, and the next one would go into the lag spot. So just to demonstrate that, I'm going to do that with chiller number 3. Actually, what happens is the override clears because the enable comes on. So I'm just going to do it here with the override switch. Force this to override. This becomes the lead. It's going to shut off chiller 2 because it was the third in the order there. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn on number 4 in override. So now number 4 became the lag 1 chiller, and it's going to shut off the lag 2 chiller. So this is what we mean by adaptive, that the order is still going to change even though it's technically manual order. The order will still change based on these exceptions. And we'll change this rotation mode to fixed. Okay, so the order is set, and this is fixed. So no matter what the exceptions, if there's an alarm, if there's an override, well, I'll just show you. You'll see exactly how it works. So I'm going to stage the first chiller on. You should see number 4 come on. I'm going to stage the second chiller on, and you should see number 2 come on. There it goes. And let me go ahead and throw one of these into alarm right now. So it's still smart enough to know that a chiller is an alarm and that we require 2 chillers. Okay, so it's still smart enough to say, oh no, my chiller 4 lead turned off. Here's the alarm, it's locked out, takes it out of the order. That's still there. But what makes it different from rotation mode 1 and 2, right, runtime and adaptive manual, is that when this is released, this is going to go back into the order of what the operator had set. So originally this was the lead. So if I take this out and I reset it, so I, the operator, am saying, okay, I cleared the alarm, let's go ahead and reset this chiller. It's going to go right back into the lead spot and turn on. So it's going to hot swap your chillers. Now, whether or not the operator is cognizant or knows that they shouldn't be doing that, or is okay that their system can do that, then that's on them, right? And the operator should be smart enough to know, okay, this chiller should not be there. I'm going to go and reset the order to put 4 at the end, okay? Likewise, now if someone comes in and overrides chiller 3, for example, so this goes to the on position, or chiller 1, let's say, since I'm on chiller 1, it will not do anything to the lead and the lag, right? The order still stays the same, but now the chiller is overrated on. So the system is not going to say, oh, I see that a chiller status is still on. Let's throw the enable on it. It's not going to do that. It's not going to go in and start opening up valves, opening up towers. It just is what it is. Someone overrode the chiller. It's in fixed manual rotation mode. They should have also been smart enough to override a tower and whatnot. The recommendation for me for when you're using fixed manual rotation is that chillers shouldn't just be overridden, right? If someone's manually messing with the chillers, needs something on, then they should rotate the order to get it on, or stage up chillers to get number 3 on. That way it opens up the proper valves, it opens up the towers, turns on whatever pumps that it needs, and so forth. As you can see, the biggest difference is for fixed manual rotation is this is the order you get. As chillers get locked out and brought back into play, it's going to go right back into the order that it started in. So the operator has to be very well aware of how their system is operating. So let's take a look at the program.
Okay, and as we do that, just kind of mention a couple of things. One is, as Justin said before, this is kind of a core program, but it also has peripheral programs around it. One of them is going to be a number of chillers to run, so you send it to 3. So another staging program would be required to give you that number. There's also alarms that we saw with some of the fails and things like that. That's another program. Another thing is, as we were going through the program, just for our demo, we had another helper program that monitored the enable, and 7 seconds later changed the value so our demo would go smoothly. Normally, you wouldn't fail a chiller in 5 seconds. It may be more like 5 minutes. And so as you get this program, it'll have good default values in it, but we'll adjust that appropriately. And I guess the last point is, in looking at this program, I think that the first 2 solutions, the automatic rotation, the adapted rotation, those are really intended for like-size equipment. So like-size chillers, same tons, et cetera, because you're going to be swapping between 2. And so you want to make sure that they're equal sized so you have an equal load. This isn't a great solution for if you have different tons of chillers or different DPMs of pumps. However, the fixed manual rotation, you could just set the order, and you always want the big chiller to come on first and the second chiller, and you can manually rotate things that way. But just kind of keep those things in mind.
Thanks, Lonnie. When you look through the rotations, the 3 different modes, you definitely think it's a complicated program. And it is. It's a very complicated program. Everything is kind of stuck all in this HFB. If I were to go in this, and I'm not going to go into this in great detail, but you'll see that there are a lot of blocks on the page. There's a lot of interlocks to make sure that statuses are on, and monitoring all the different alarms, freezing the different orders. So you'll see that there is a lot of time, a lot of testing went into this program. The one thing that is different between the chiller rotation and a pump rotation, so there's going to be 2 kinds of rotation program. One's going to be for chillers and one's going to be for pumps and towers. And the biggest difference you're going to see is when they're locked out. If one of the chillers that was running is locked out, then it waits for another pump to come on before it shuts off that pump. When you use it, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our team and reach out to the communities. Here we are in the communities, and the easiest way to find any of our standards is just to go into the search forum. But if you, it's going to pull up all of our posts. We'll find our rotation of how the program works. There's a link to our box account. So this is where we keep all of our exports. And our standard way of distributing to you is through exports of custom types. So you would take this and import it into your custom types window. Since this is the first of its kind where we have released just a program as a standard, I've also added a folder in here which contains just our AUT files. Okay, so here's all our AUT files, and the CP applications folder has all of our exports for custom types. There's also README text here that explains to you that these are custom type exports. And okay, now this is where we get it, but also just download one of these. So let's download a pump rotation 4 pump. Here's a 3.2. All of our applications are 3.1, so you can use it for 3.1 and above. You want to make sure that you are using a workspace that is for custom types, so engineering with custom types. And then on the right-hand side in our custom type library, this is where we're going to import our export. So right-click and click on import, and we'll do the 4 pump rotation. Import it in. So now here's our program that we've imported in, and to use that, you're going to have to create a function block program. And here we'll just call it chilled water pump rotation. Create it, and then we can associate this with that custom type. So if we go down to our custom type window or menu and attach, we can click on our 4 pump, hit OK, and then close. So now if we went in and took a look at this program, here it is. So the intent is, your system might have condenser water pumps, chilled water pumps. You might even use this for your cooling towers. So just by creating your program, you can just right-click and attach it. Now, once you've done so, most likely you could just detach it, and you could work on the program as if it wasn't a custom type at all.
All right. Well, thank you, Justin. That was awesome. I hope everybody sees an immediate need for a program like this. What really stands out to me is it's less about lead lag or the order of equipment, and more about intelligently deciding which piece of equipment should stage up next and which piece of equipment should stage down next. Obviously, if something is in hand, it's not a good candidate to stage down. If something has failed, it's not a good candidate to stage up. And this is going to automatically keep everything just in the right position so that you see less downtime and less maintenance requirements through rotation. So I hope you all see a use for this soon in a project coming up. We want you to use it, give us feedback, post on the community, let us know your thoughts. Send us a ticket if you need to through NAMPSS. We're here to help. The rest of the central plant program is coming soon. So all of those peripheral programs that Lonnie talked about, the alarms program, the pump enable, the chiller enable, the staging, all of that is coming. But we wanted to get something in your hands quickly so you can build an entire system out of NAND standard components. Hope you enjoyed this presentation. Leave us some feedback in the comments and have a great day.
Hello and welcome everyone to Fusion Friday session 20. So this session will be hosted by Mr. Mike Botens and I. We've got a couple discussion points to kick off with you all, a couple technical demos, and then of course I always love the discussion during our sessions. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. All right, let's take a look at what we've got coming up this session. So first of all, we're going to kick it off with some announcements. Then Mike and I are going to share a few zoning and reporting updates with you. And then I'll be giving you a demo of the Occupant app menu and the Building Engage app. So I have no idea what your experience level is to this point, if you've kicked the tires yet on the Building Engage app, but we'll do that together. And then Mike is going to share some really slick recording tricks. He's been able to carve out some time to really get to know the super slick new reporting capabilities, all using XLSX templates and what is possible, beginning to figure out what's possible and where we can go now that we have this cool new feature. And then, of course, Q&A is always welcome. You don't have to save it till the end. Feel free to speak up whenever you have a question or want to discuss something. So first of all, this is our last scheduled Fusion Fridays session. We started off having them every week, and then we slowed down the cadence a little bit. But now that our educational service team is having to ramp back up, our other training initiatives, Mike and I are supporting classroom instruction a bit more, and so we have a little less time available to plan out and facilitate these sessions. That said, I have really loved seeing what Fusion Fridays and Mondays with Mike have become, and the opportunity to collaborate and share. We are not ending Fusion Fridays. We're just saying that we're not going to have a scheduled cadence. So what we plan on doing when there is a topic that we really want to share, or maybe David Fisher and the standards team really want to share something or get some feedback, we will announce sessions at least 1 week in advance by posting a comment on the Fusion Fridays post on the community. So if you would like to receive notifications of scheduled sessions, go ahead and subscribe to the Fusion Fridays thread on the community, and then when we post that comment announcing a session, you'll receive an email, and you'll be able to put it on your calendar. So we'd love to have you all join us for future sessions, even though they'll be a little less regular. Okay, so Mike and I shared some zoning information with you all in a past Fusion Friday session, and also during Release Notes Party. We actually got some great feedback from one of the product managers. There's a few tidbits that he was wanting to make sure we were able to share with you all as a result of those past discussions. The first is, this is something that I didn't mention, so my bad, but zoning is really cool. Zoning is going to be a licensed feature. So the zoning user interface, both in Workstation and in WebStation. So for those of us that use the demo license, the engineering license, you have full access to the zoning user interface. Specifically though, if a customer is wanting to perform rezoning using either the Workstation or the WebStation interface, that is an upsell. So that is an additional licensing option that they will need for their system in order to do that rezoning on the fly. So it's not currently enforced. So those of you who've tried it with a permanent license might have seen that it's currently working. But our product management friend did say that enforcement will be coming in a future release. So we're just wanting to protect you from getting a customer excited about this, and then saying, but wait, there's a cost after you do an upgrade and it breaks. So hopefully you won't be in that situation. So good news, though, is that it's just licensed at the parent server level, at the ES or EC level, and then child servers can inherit the license. So you're not having to purchase it for every automation server that needs it. Next, this was, Jim, I think this was in response to a question you had, and he had a great insight for me, because we were kind of figuring out, maybe if we create our zones like in a certain order, we can affect which is the master. Our friend showed us that they've actually made it really easy to choose a master, even if you create the zone from a collection of segments and the segment that you want to be the master is not initially the master. This is a view and workstation. You can just right-click on it and then click Set as Master. And as long as you have made it master capable, you have this option, you click on it, and then it takes over the master role. In WebStation, similar thing, except instead of the right-click, it's clicking on these three dots. I don't know whether to call this a vertical ellipsis or the micro hamburger. I'm not sure, but
what slider? It's a slider.
Slider.
Mini burger.
Perfect. You click on the slider.
Wait a second. We already have sliders.
At first I thought you meant like sliding up and down, but it's like it's like the appetizer slider, the mini burger.
Exactly.
All right, so you click on, we'll call it the slider during this
Call it
session.
the White Castle. How about that?
I love it. So click on the White Castle. Hopefully I don't get busted for copyright, trademark infringement or whatever.
No.
But then you get this menu come up, and you have the option to set this segment as master. So it's actually easy once you know the secret handshake, and it's not that secret of a handshake. I just didn't stumble across it during our last session. All right, next up, Mike is going to borrow the screen share to show us something that I should have showed you guys during our last zoning session, but it's a really slick trick. Yes, sir.
All right. So this is something I didn't stumble upon. Just not something I try, but really, really neat feature that they've added in, and everybody's going to be clamoring to get this everywhere, I think. But if you do have rezoning set up and you right-click and go into the zoning mode in WebStation, so this is not necessarily clicking on the rezoning and going into that mode, it's right-clicking and zoning, and so you get the groups over here and the floor plan typically over here. If you use the scroll bar and zoom in, a little thumbnail image of the floor plan pops up, and you can actually use this to move around your TGML graphic. I didn't have to add anything in to get this feature. It's already natively built in, kind of like when we were seeing the check marks come up. They added this feature in here with the check marks in just the top right or top left corner, 00. Same thing here. They've added code that allows you to zoom in and pan around your floor plan image. So now the next obvious question is, can I have this on every graphic, please? Right, so go to the idea section, make an idea, and we'll all vote up. Let's have this floor plan thumbnail everywhere as a feature rather than just zoning, right? But very, very, very neat thing that they've added in.
That's awesome. We got sliders and mini maps. I mean, what more could you want? That is really cool. With no code required, having the ability to have a representation of the whole graphic and being able to zoom around. It's really slick.
Very cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mike. Okay, so this is what I think is great news. We talked about this during our last session. We didn't think it had been implemented. We have confirmation now that it hasn't been implemented yet, but that it is in the works. So zoning presets is what we're going to call this, and that is pre-configured zoning groups. So it's still under development, so I don't have a lot of details, but I can tell you that the intention is for a program to trigger rezoning, a graphic to be able to trigger rezoning, and not just using the zoning UI, but being able to select a preset and then it happens, or even something like a schedule. So it is not in 3.2.1, but it is very likely coming in a future release. So I've got some little pictures here on the right-hand side. None of these are our products, but these are other vendors' products, like from Lutron and Wattstopper, Legrand, and some others. In fact, the one there on the top, the pair of gizmos on the top, I've actually seen these on the ceiling in our facility in the Nashville hub, which is the floor plan Mike used for that slick graphic just a second ago. And they, right now, because we didn't have our connected room solution at the time, right now they're using those Lutron sensors in our Nashville office to detect when our movable partitions are open versus when they're closed. So when they're open, the lighting control panels know to control adjacent spaces as one. When they're closed, they know to control them independently. So with zoning presets, I perceive this is going to be a really big deal in our market because in Europe, they probably have a lot of open floor plans where they reconfigure zones, and that's the way they work. Here, I think that's a little less common. But I do think a lot of large buildings, like hospitality, have ballrooms, or large corporate buildings might have meeting spaces with partitions. Anytime you have a room that has movable partitions, I think it's a great potential fit for zoning. Because if you have the capability to have a partition, when the partition is closed, you're probably going to want to control those spaces separately. When the partition's open, you're probably going to want to control them together. Whether that's just climate or if there's also lighting involved or even possibly blinds. So zoning presets, I'm excited about. It's probably coming, and so stay tuned for more information on that. Okay, I need to set the record straight. I may have misspoken during the release notes party. Want to make sure I get accurate info out there. So Mike's going to keep me honest here. The ES and the EC and the ASP, ASB, and the new automation server premium with no LON, they all have the ability to save reports to files, to create user notifications, to fire things off as email notifications, which is awesome, to do SNMP traps, so that's a licensed feature. They can all send information out through all those methods. They can both do, as of 3.2, the XLSX really slick reporting that Mike's going to be doing a little bit later this session. They can generate text. It's saved to text file. They've got the ability to create an HTML file or CSV file. There is a PDF option, but that is just at the enterprise server, enterprise central level. So essentially, what's really cool is both of our servers can render these XLSX reports, but specifically at the enterprise server, enterprise central level, it can then automatically render that XLSX report as a PDF. I may have misspoken and said that could happen at the automation server level. Specifically, it is just at the ES and EC level at this point. So if you want to generate PDF reports, do that in your enterprise server.
Hey, Jeff, is that an unprotected PDF?
So it can generate a standard PDF, or as a licensed feature, it can be a signed PDF. So I'm not sure, I'm not an expert at what protection means, but if it is signed, if any editing is done to that PDF, it'll break the signature. So it's a tamper evidence seal. Does that answer your question?
It's on the CFR 21 sessions, they were talking about the Write Protect was an upgrade. So I was just curious if this was embedded in that, or you just, you can edit it.
So you have the ability to generate a PDF without the licensed feature, but that the 21 CFR that additional the compliance pack. Yes, thanks, Mike. That allows you to sign the PDF, where you have a certificate that's loaded on the server, and then with that certificate and that license, it's then able to generate a hash for that PDF, and essentially that signature indicates if any byte of that PDF file gets modified.
And there's a cheaper separate license if you don't want the whole compliance pack. If you just want PDF signing, you can purchase that license and just get PDF signing.
Good point. Yeah, if you don't need all the change control stuff. Right. Yeah, good question, Jim. All right. And then one more note from our friend Craig Ellis, who's a great guy in our support organization out of Australia. I believe Craig was probably disappointed that the release notes party didn't have time to cover the EBO known issues. So Craig made a great observation, and that is for anyone that's interested in seeing the EBO known issues and even searching, having a searchable interface for EBO known issues, he maintains a list of all of them since revision 1.9 on the community. So you can go to the EcoStruxure building operation space on the community, and then known issues is one of the sub forums. If you really like typing, you can type in this link, or I'll probably post this slide deck, so it could be a clickable link if you wanted. But anyway, Craig points out that that's a great resource. I think it's also really nice because you don't have to wait until Mike and I's next release notes party to see new known issues as they're discovered, they're added to the space. So it's kept up to date, and as new solutions or workarounds are developed, they'll be posted there too. So great resource. Thanks for pointing that out, Craig. Okay, with that, we're going to switch gears and talk about the Building Engage app. So we've heard about this for a little while, some of us more than others. But before I get into a demo, I'm really interested to see how much each of you know about the Building Engage app. All right, here's a question. What is your experience level with the Schneider Electric Building Engage app? Are you sitting there right now asking, what is the Engage app? Have you just heard of it? Have you gone the next step and actually downloaded it on a device? Have you downloaded it and attempted to load it and tried to connect to something? Or have you successfully connected to a controller?
Now, does downloading it on a device include the previous demo version?
Sure. Yeah, the original version. Oh, there it is. Yeah, the original version just had simulation mode. And man, that was a simulation. All right. Also, it's good to see you guys are all over the map. I did just recently support somebody who would fall in the 0 category right now. He did attempt to try it out, but did not have success. So my goal here over the next little bit, I need to make sure I leave enough good time for the great content coming up. Over the next 30 minutes or less, I'll be showing you how to grab it off the App Store, how to use it to connect to an RPC, and how to do the configuration in the RPC to enable it to work. So what's cool is, as Mike points out, the last time we talked to a lot of folks, the Engage app was more of a sales demo than something that was technically functional. So the good news is it's come a long way, and now it's usable. So looking forward to showing it to you all. So first of all, the Building Engage app. The place to get it is in the App Store or the Google Play Store, and you can search for Schneider Electric Building Engage, or maybe I'll just try Building Engage. Oh, and there's EcoStruxure Building Engage. Check out our great review, 4.5 stars. Never mind that it's just 2 reviews. It's a new app. But this is where you can get it. So once you got it, then you can just launch it on your device. And so this looks similar. Those who've seen the demo version, it looks very similar. There is still a simulate mode. There's a scan for rooms mode. Scan for rooms in this app goes out and finds the RPCs that are in BLE, Bluetooth Low Energy range. The trick is you need to have the Bluetooth enabled on your RPCs, and you also need to have an occupant app menu created. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do the groundwork to support this. By default, for security reasons, when you host an RPC, it will actually disable Bluetooth. It's enabled by default. Once you host it, for the sake of security, it disables it, so then you have to use Workstation to re-enable. So here's my RPC. Under the System folder, Settings, this is where you would see that Bluetooth is disabled once you've hosted the controller. So you want to be sure you set that to enabled. You can see we have an occupant app whitelist. I've not played with that yet, but I've just left it at the default of disabled. I'm not sure if this is functional yet, but the intention is definitely to allow you to change the pin so that different rooms can have a different Bluetooth pairing pin. But for now, I'm not going to touch it. And then just to prepare for this, let me delete this guy. Okay, under I/O resources, so application is where all your application code, your programs, your I/O points, your trend logs, all that good stuff, it's where that's going to go. But then under I/O resources, which is where with SmartX controllers, we're used to having, I'll keep this unlocked so I don't need to reconnect it. We're used to having all of our I/O terminal references on the onboard I/O, in the onboard I/O area. Sensor bus, we're used to that from any living space sensors you have that show up in that menu. And then room bus, that is where for the new RPCs, your connected room solution modules show up. So I've got a few on my RPC here. App menus is what we're going to look at right now, though. So app menus is where we need to create a new occupant app menu in order to facilitate the Building Engage app. So before I create that, let me just talk briefly about what this app is intended to be. Some people say, oh, I've already got the e-commissioning tool. Why do I need another app? That's a great question. The e-commissioning tool is intended for folks that are doing point-to-point checkout, commissioning of the system, flow balance, those kind of installation-ish tasks. The Building Engage app is actually intended to be an occupant app. So this is for people that are actually working in the building or that are occupying the space. So this is intended to give them the ability not to check out I/O points or to do flow balance. This is giving them the ability to do set point adjust or changing a fan speed or potentially doing lighting or blind control if it's present in the building or in their room. So the way this works, it doesn't use IP. It just uses Bluetooth Low Energy, BLE. When you click Scan for Rooms, it identifies all of the RPCs that it can see via Bluetooth, and then it will give the occupant a menu of all those rooms. So ideally, the rooms have friendly names, and I'll show you how to do that. But then they're sorted in order of strongest signal strength. Now, unfortunately, I just have one RPC here for today's session, but if I had another one that was in another room, the signal strength would be a little weaker, and so it would show up lower in the list. So the idea is if I'm in a particular conference room of a building, the conference room that I'm in, its signal strength should be the strongest, so it should be at the top of the list. So enough background. Let me show you how to do it. If you have an RPC, underneath I/O resources, on app menus, you can right-click and create a new occupant app menu. This is actually incredibly simple. I'll use the next button just to show you that it's just the standard BACnet options. I'm not sure that it's actually relevant, though. I think this is a proprietary object. So I'm going to create it, and then I've got an occupant app menu. So there's not actually anything I can do to this occupant app menu. The way that I configure it is by binding it. It's got bindings available that are references to the objects that I want it to use. So let me show you. If I right-click and edit bindings. So this occupant app menu has a blind angle, a blind position. So angle would be like if you have the slats that can rotate. Blind position is if the blind can be rolled up, or maybe it's a shade. The shade can be rolled all the way up. Fan speed. So this is to be bound to the current speed of the fan. If there are multiple possible speeds, it is a multi-state. Fan speed changes allowed. So if you just want the app to show the fan speed but not allow the user to interact with it, you bind this to something that is false or off. This is a binary signal. And so then they have read-only visibility to the fan speed. If you bind it to something that is true, then they have the capability of setting a fan speed. Fan speeds allowed gives you the ability, I believe, to configure the number of states for that fan speed. Light level, in case you're doing lighting control. This is bound to an analog value, and it lets the occupant set one of a number of different settings. Okay, so I'm seeing feedback that, yeah, there could be an issue using the RPC to control in hospitality because adjacent rooms could see each other's RPC. So we talked with the product team about that, and the intention is to let you use different PIN codes for the different rooms. So the idea is, I believe, when a guest checks in, a PIN code could be generated for them. So when they're in their room, they are given their PIN code. Maybe it's shown on the screen of a stat. Maybe it's written on the envelope for the room key or whatever. But the idea is the PIN code would keep one occupant from connecting to another room's controller. That's a great question. We've definitely got the product team in the line of business trying to solve that problem. Okay, so light level, I mentioned, allows the user to increase or decrease the lighting level if it's installed. If you don't bind anything to this, it's just grayed out. Location. This is a very important binding. When you bind a string or an attribute from the system to this, it controls the display name for that room. So I'll show you what I mean. Temperature and temperature set point Temp control is probably the most basic capability I would expect for this app. So showing the current temperature, allowing set point adjustment if the temp set point changes allowed is enabled. This is just like the fan speed changes allowed, where you bind it to a digital signal. If it's on, then it allows them to do set point adjust. If it's off, then it's read only. And then in case you're letting them do set point changes, there's actually a high limit and a low limit. So you can say they can't adjust it above this high limit or they can't adjust it below this low limit. So let's go ahead and bind things up. First of all, for location, I am making use of the under advanced, I think. Yes, under advanced of this controller, there's actually a location field, and I've set that to Jeff's office. But we could set it to something else. We could set it to Fusion Friday 20. So I save that, and so now my location attribute of my hosting controller is now Fusion Friday space 20. And so maybe when I go here into my occupant app bindings, and I just, let's see if I can find that. If I go to my RPC, and then I've got location, I'll drag that to my location field. And then let's populate a couple other binds, just starting with basic, and then we'll get more and more involved as we go. So let's just do temperature first. So I'll just do temperature and temperature set point, and that location. So I'll bind room temp to temperature, room temp set point to temp set point, temp changes allowed. I'm calling that set point adjust enable here. The temp high, set point high limit, set point low limit, and we'll save these bindings. All right, let's check this out. If I bring this up, I've got a few other things here, but let me put room temp down here. So we've got room temp and room temp set point. And then if I bring my mobile device screen up, now I'm going to scan for rooms. Scanning for rooms, we'll see. I may need to relaunch the app because I've had it sitting idle for a long time. Does the RPC allow only the Engage app connection, only one Engage app connection at a time, since we're dealing with Bluetooth? I think so. I think it does only allow one Bluetooth connection at a time, but I haven't tested it. So great question. Unfortunately, if I had anyone else here, I would definitely have them test it too. I guess I could test it with an iPad. Yeah, we'll try that in a minute, Jeff. Good question. First, I'll go ahead and show you. I do have Fusion Friday 20 showing up as a room detected, and then I just click on this green arrow, and then it shows my current temperature, my current room set point my current room temperature rounded to tenths of a degree. I'm using Fahrenheit. If your guest wanted to change, they could just click on the current value there, and it changes to Celsius. So a conversion for those who are more comfortable with the rest of the world's units. And then I've got the up and down buttons, so I can use plus or minus. I've set a low limit, in this case, of 68 Fahrenheit and a high limit of 78 Fahrenheit. So if I try to take it down below that level, you can see it actually grays out the decrease button. And then if I try to take it up above 78, you can see it grays out the set point adjust. It does use whole degree steps. I perceive most occupants are okay with whole degree steps, and that does make it a little easier to increase and decrease the set point quickly, rather than if you're doing tenths or something else. So everything else is grayed out because we didn't bind to it. We didn't bind to the fan. We didn't bind to the lights. We didn't bind to the blinds. In Celsius as well. Great question. So it looks like, great question, Chris. It looks like it's 0.5 degrees in Celsius. So very interesting. Good question. All right. We'll see you, Carl. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so let's say we wanted to do more than just temperature. Let's say we wanted to bind the fan and maybe the lights too. So that's just a matter of, in fact, I'll show you binding the fan first without changes enabled. So if I bind fan speed to fan speed, and fan speed changes allowed, fan speed's allowed, but then let's say we want to set our fan speed changes allowed to inactive. All right, so we've now got fan speed and stuff for the fan bound, but we've said changes shouldn't be allowed. So now this is tricky. Since we changed that option, I'm going to go back and scan for rooms again, see if this works. Since I was just connected, the RPC might assume I already know about it. Yeah, okay. I'll relaunch real quick. I probably need to just let it time out, but I'm a little bit impatient. All right, I'm going to scan for rooms, and it should find Fusion Friday 20 again. There we go. And so now I open it up. And I've got a fan bound. I'm at my lowest speed right now. So you can see the fan one-liner icon is no longer gray, it's now black. But I don't have the ability to change it. So if my fan speed was medium, let's see if it reflects that. No, it's not reflecting it. It's showing that there is a fan, but it's not giving me feedback right now with current speed. All right, well, I must say, it's more fun when I'm able to change my fan speed. So let me make that active and save. And then let's see if simply pulling the room up again will reflect that change. It did, great. Okay, so now I have adjustability of the fan speed. So I can say I want the fan speed to be lower, and then you can see, let's see, did I goof things up by getting something in my command priority there? Fan speed. I did. I set something. I'm going to use this cool feature, set to null, and save. I guess I don't need to save. Refresh. Great. Okay, so now my fan speed is at medium. And now I can decrease it with the app. It goes to low. Decrease it, go to off, increase it. And so real time with the Engage app, I'm able to change that bound fan speed. And then there's also the auto button. If I wanted to return the fan to auto speed control, I can hit the auto button. And then that, I believe, it actually sets it, let's check. Oh yeah, well, it's allowed me to go to auto, which I've configured as my my top state. So here, I've configured this myself with off, low, medium, high, and auto. So I'm not sure, but I believe I got it to go to auto when that button is pressed by setting up auto as the relinquish default, I believe. Although I see that we do still have a value in priority 16. Anyway, and then once we pull it out of auto, we have the ability to manually control the speed. All right, so that's fan speed, and then now let's, to get ready for the great stuff Mike's going to share, I'll just bind the rest of the dummy values I created for us. The light level, the blind position, and blind angle. So I just made some values to bind to these so that they would be active. So light level, blind angle. Of course, I could do bindings normally from the right-hand side of my screen, but since I've got my phone screen up, it's a little easier for now for me. So I've got all those, and then when I go back, and then I go back in, let's see if it detects the changes. It sure did. Awesome. So then you can see these other things down here, the blind angle and position here, and the light level here. And so I can increase and decrease stuff. Oh, great question. So Scott, you're asking if the MP is planned to also get BLE and be used with the Engage app. I don't believe so, because the BLE that we're using on the room purpose controller is actually on board on the controller. For MPX to do BLE, you have to use the Bluetooth commissioning dongle with a living space sensor, and those aren't intended to be permanently installed. I'm not aware of any plans to redesign the MPX to put onboard Bluetooth on the device, but we do have onboard Bluetooth on the RPC, and there may be an RPV in the works that's also going to have onboard Bluetooth. So it's just these controllers that have onboard Bluetooth versus the MP series where you have to use the adapter, the Bluetooth adapter. But great question. It looks like there's another one. No, that was it. Okay, great. So I can change my blind position. I can change my blind's angle. So it's a slick little app. It's not, just to make sure expectations are set in a healthy way, you can't adjust what is available in this app. It is temperature with possibility of set point adjust, fan speed adjust, and then lighting, blind position, blind angle. Whatever you don't bind to will just be grayed out. There could be other changes to this in the future, but what's really nice about the Engage app is it's very simple to use. You don't have to go through a lot of exotic configuration to set it up. It's just a matter of a user downloading this app, and then they can just see the controller via Bluetooth, and then you just have to create this occupant app menu and then bind it to the respective points to enable it to work. So we want it to be simple, easy, user-friendly. So there it is. I'm guessing that eventually we will remove the simulate option from the app, but for now it's there. So in case you don't have an RPC, you can see how it works. So this is a little bit more realistic in a more densely controller populated building. So you can see multiple conference rooms and other types of rooms available. And then clicking on one of these, of course, you can see its parameters and adjust them, etc. So any questions on the Building Engage app? Are set point changes done by a last input approach between the Engage app and actually changing the set point as the stat? I believe so. I believe it's a last change wins type model. So as David Fisher presented in a past session, David, the living space sensor uses an HMI reference, right?
That is correct for about 8 different signals. So you'd have to check the web help, but it's kind of the ones you would expect. The room temp set point, the room occupy override, and then the rest of them, I believe, are all connected room solution signals, so blind angle, lighting control, whatever.
Cool. So set point change done through the living space sensor has the ability to go in and modify the value, but not hold the value captive. So then you could have changes from this binding, which we would need to test, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is also an HMI reference binding, especially given the bidirectional arrows. It kind of looks like a graphic binding. So it's bidirectional because you can make changes through the app to the controller, or the app can display the value that's currently in the controller. So yeah, I think the intention is to be able to change the set point from wherever and then to see it from wherever. Great question, Jim. All right. Well, I don't want to shortchange Mike any time. What I'll do, Jim, is while Mike is getting started, I'll fire up my iPad and I'll connect to the same controller and see if I can have 2 devices connect, and then I'll put something in the chat to let you know. So I love that we can test things out and see if we can break things during this call. It's a great informal avenue for doing fun stuff. So, all right, if there aren't any other questions about the Building Engage app, we're now going to switch gears. And Mike, you can take it away and show us all about some slick reporting capabilities.
All right, very good. So let's see. First of all, I just want to make sure, if you're not aware, we have been posting all the webinars that we did last month onto this Digital Buildings webinars. And so I'm not going to recover all the information that was in here, but there is change control and enhanced reporting lab guides that you can follow to get just a chart with a trend log up, tables, events, alarms, how to bind it so that information gets into Excel. I'll cover some of that again today, but I want to focus on some of the nitty-gritty stuff and some of the neat features in Excel. And first of all, let's see, if I go in, yeah. Okay, so here there was a bug found, and so I owe some people some emails regarding this bug, but if you try to do a notification report and use a multi-trend log list to try to get data into Excel, this has been running every day, and so if I look at some of these past ones, you can see empty reports happening, and that's because the multi-trend log list wasn't able to get data in, even as soon as yesterday. So I actually fixed it yesterday, and I didn't have time to test it, but while Jeff was talking, I opened up one, and boom, I have data. Amazing. And so what it is on the multi-trend log list. So let's look at this guy. If you have the series in here, but there's no calculation method set, and it defaults to none, so if you leave it at none, apparently there's a bug that won't let the data go into Excel. And so we have to come in and set something in the calculation method. And so I just matched average for my average and then max for my max. But I was banging my head on this for a while trying to get, because there's no real indication of why something, sometimes there is, like this down here, there's an indication I'll show you in a second. But there's typically no indication of why things are failing in reports, and so I'm hoping in the future we'll have a better error system, I guess, and know why things aren't working. But yeah, so that's a bug. It should come out in 3.2.2, I believe Ulf said, and so we'll be waiting for that. And then if you have any customers that absolutely need the multi-trend log list, let product support know, and maybe they can get that into a hot fix or a consolidation point. But I haven't really needed it also because you can put as many trend logs as you want into reports. You're not limited to just one. And so I've just been throwing a whole bunch of trend logs in and gathering that data. And that's what we'll look at today is getting data in and then what to do with that data to make it look kind of neat. So let's look at this guy first. We'll start off by showing the end, and then we'll build some of these pieces. Let's see, not that one. Sorry. I want the Excel one. Cancel. Close that one. All right, so one of the things I've been working on lately is getting kind of nice looking report / dashboard set up in Excel. And so you have some interactivity where you can say today over yesterday, you can change pie charts to last 30 days or this week. Have these drop downs that actually do things. And there's so many more features and whatnot, but I want to show you how to build some of this today. And so first of all, understand whenever I have an Excel sheet up in here, the tabs you hide will stay hidden when you create the Excel or the PDF. And so one of the techniques I've been doing is I'm gathering the data, I'm analyzing the data. I can make energy usage charts that I can select from, and then I only show the presentation. And so if you want to slim down your tables to just fit into a certain box or just show charts in kind of this widget style, that's easily, you can do that with Excel and formatting and whatnot. So we'll look at how to do some of this. But you can make really, really slick charts given a little bit of time to do this. I was working on some charts, I guess, last night for a demo they're doing. I don't know when it is, next week. And it takes a little time to figure out and understand what might be broken, but once you get it, it's done, right? It takes a little time to set up the things we'll look at today, but once you have it set up once, then it's ready to go, and you can have the report as many times as you want.
And even doing the really cool whiz-bang stuff in Excel, I've got to believe, even though it can be a little complex, it's got to be way better than doing really advanced reporting stuff, having to pull data from SQL. I've got to believe there's a much steeper learning curve for writing custom reports against our old report server versus using Excel.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. All right. So what we'll do is I'll go ahead and start one from scratch, and then we'll piece things in. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll pop up chat, but I'll probably be hiding chat for now and then as well. All right. So I'm just going to do a new notification, and I start with a notification report template. This is how I get my data in to a report. So report template first. Then I pick my sources, and so I'm going to load just a bunch of trend logs, and I'm going to be pulling it out of the global demo database just because it's readily available. So I have a backup of the global demo database here, and let's see, I think I always get lost in here a little bit. Locations, Boston, building mode, average. Okay, so this will be Boston, And I'm just going to leave everything as is. Down here, let me actually change this to giant number. I just want 30 days. So create. And then I'll add, I'll just add a couple more. So let's do London. Same thing. London. Let me up this number just so I grab them all. And then I'll add Hong Kong. Include events here. I'm actually going to go back and turn that off for all these. What that is if anybody hand enters a value or the time clock changes or a trend log starts, that's what this include events is. And I don't actually want that in my data, so I'm going to turn that off for all of these as well. At least not in this data. It would be helpful in other data. All right, so let me edit these, just turning these off for those. False and false. All right, everything else should be okay. And so now I have my data sources. Next, I want to go ahead and build a, start with the variable trigger notification and create next. I'll ignore the variable trigger for now, but normally you'd hook that up to probably a schedule of some sort. We're going to do a notification report template and XLSX, so I can pull that in, and then our distribution method will be write to file. I'm going to make it SLSX, and this will be my energy report FF demo. Uniqueness none, overwrite true, convert to PDF false. Okay, create. And so the only thing left is my XLSX, and so I'm going to go ahead and I found that it typically it errors out if I try to make an SLXX document here and open it. It becomes corrupted for some reason. I don't know if that's just my computer or what, but what I've found more success with is making a new Excel booklet and saving that and then pulling that in, and that seems to work every time. So let me save this guy. I probably already have an empty template somewhere that I've done this, but it's okay. So just say empty XLSX template. All right, open. Oh, not open. What am I doing? I need to save. Save. Browse. All right. So now I've got that guy. I'm going to go ahead and close him and then drag him into my database here. And you don't have to start this way. The other way you could do this is if you have a template that or an Excel sheet that's close to what you want, you can copy that into this folder and use that as well, or just use it as is if you want. I'm just starting empty so I can show you all the steps to everything. So maybe I'll rename this to energy report. And now I should be able to open this just fine and edit it and save it. Now the link, again, this is the nitty-gritty part. So the link between this document and whenever you open it and edit it, and then getting it saved and back into the database can be a little bit tenuous at times. So there's been many a time where I've gone through and edited a ton of information here, saved it, closed it, and then you have to click on Workstation and you're hoping for a little success box to pop up. Sometimes you wait, and it never pops up and it never edits. And so I don't know what I do in order for that link to break. It's probably because I have tons of things open all the time or something. And maybe I go off to search the internet, or I don't know, something breaks that connection. And so I lose data at times. And so my recommendation is, one, make small incremental changes when you're editing this and save and make sure it comes in often. Two, it's probably a good idea that when you do make a humongous edit that you don't want to lose, because I've almost gotten a little trigger shy when I go to save. And so I actually have started saving as and save it to my machine, my C drive, and then pull it in as a new Excel template, usually with properties and going and browsing. Okay, so that's probably the safer way to do this, and it'll always work that way. Let's see, that should be fine. There is a limit on how big a file you can drag and drop into the databases, and I think that's 20 megabytes, which normally we shouldn't hit that unless you have really large header images or something. Like you've imported some kind of header image that, I guess even then, I mean, really it shouldn't be that big, but maybe it is. And so dragging and dropping this Excel file into here may just error out. Like if it's bigger than 20 megabytes, it just says no. And so you'll have to delete things to get it in. But I believe if you do properties and browse it, any size should be fine. But you can see some of my, oh, yeah, okay, so these are too big down here. I don't know what I have in there, but those are way too big. But even everything else is fairly decently sized, so that's not a big deal. I'm guessing it's a header. Oh, no. I can't, because it's too big. That's the error you get. All right. So next thing, let's get data in, and then we'll look at how to massage that data into some semblance of a nice looking report. So what I need to do is open this back up. It also errors out if you try to open it twice. It'll say, hey, don't do that. You've got to open somewhere else, and I can't open it. So my first thing here is it took me forever to try to figure out how to do a consistent date system that works. Because I wanted to do kind of date filtering and that kind of thing, especially for those drop downs. And it had a really hard time because it would always come in as the date. If you just do a normal timestamp, the date would come in some format, and it would be text. Even if you specified that the format of the date was date or anything like that, I would always get text. And so naturally, it wouldn't treat it as a date form. And so I'll show you kind of that workaround first. And so what I've done is I'll make a starter, and maybe this is a little overkill. It probably is, but that's okay because, again, you do it once and it's done. So this is how I line up my date just to make sure I have all the data readily available to me to do whatever I want. Timestamp, okay. And then we'll have Boston, Hong Kong, and then London, I think. And then I just did 3, so I'll do total after that. So this is the start of my table here. And from here, I start throwing in the tags to fill these in. And so what I like to do is instead of having just a single date right here, I'll split up the timestamp into these 5 columns, and then I calculate a date and a timestamp that then I'll use to filter my data appropriately. And so what that looks like is, so let's say for Boston is what we'll use for the timestamp, because another important thing is to make sure your timestamps line up on the report that you're doing. So if I know Jeff is a good follower of this because he taught me, make sure to always zero out your trend log so that it happens on the hour or on the 15 minutes or whatever, and not have like things coming in at 9:42 a.m. and things coming in at 10:11 a.m. Make sure that they are lined up well. And so this will work just using one of these timestamps rather than having to worry about having all 3 timestamps come in. So time stamp, because I just do things willy-nilly, and Jeff keeps me honest. So, and so I just want the year here. I don't want anything else. And so if I expand this out, you can see I'm asking for Boston trend log, the timestamp, and I want it formatted to just give me a number for the year. And so for this column in the conditioning, the conditional settings or whatever, I'll do custom, or I'll do number and get rid of the decimal places. And so that will just come in as 2020. And that's exactly what I want. Or 2021, 2019, whatever. You get the idea. And so then for month, I'm just going to bring in, copy this, and now it's just %M. In that presentation, and I guess I need to post the PowerPoint too. I'll post the PowerPoint on that presentation link I showed you. I have all of these substitution codes on a slide so that you can have those readily available for you. It's also in Web Help, so you can get it from there if you want. So day, and so I can keep doing this because I haven't closed the Boston tag yet. Once I close the Boston tag, then that will tell it I don't want any more Boston in here. So hour, each of these are self-closing tags on the timestamps and the values and anything else that you put in here that's not the overarching trend log or event data or whatever it is. And then finally, I want, this one should be value, I think. Oh gosh, and this one, I haven't done this one in a while. It's like 2.f or something. I can look it up in my tags. So let's see. Spell things right then. There's. So in here is where I put all of the substitution codes, and so the one I'm looking for is this %.2f for. Oh, I guess by naturally it'll do 2 decimals. Maybe I don't want any. Maybe 1 decimal. I guess it doesn't really matter. That's wrong though. It should be .2f as usual. And then, so now that that's the end of the Boston, I need to close out the Boston tag. If you don't close out a tag, it will error out and not give you any. It won't make your report. So you have to remember to close out your tag. And then here, what I can do for like the other ones is I can open it. I just want the value. I won't even bother with formatting here. I don't think it's going to matter for my purposes too much. And then close it right back out like that. And then here, same thing, London, and then close it right back out after the value. Hopefully that's making sense how the tagging system works. You have access to all, so you can see exactly what tags are going to be available to you. Back here, whenever you added your data, so for Boston, for example, if you open it up, these are the tags that are available to you, this quick filter guy over here. So if you wanted comments or log paths or anything else, you would just throw these in tags, and you can add anything you want. It doesn't have to be in here. It has access to all of this data if you want it to have. And then by default, it has a few of these. So if you just do a self-closing tag on Boston, it would put up the timestamp value, and then I believe comment or event or something like that. You might have to specify that. I don't know. I haven't played with that too much. All right, so now I've got my tag set up for data coming in. I need to calculate my sum. So let's turn this into a table real quick. And so maybe I'll just drag this down and do a table of some amount. I'll do, what would that be if it's, I guess I only have an hour, every hour for 30 days.
30 times 24?
Yeah, what is that? It's like, I'm probably over it by here.
720.
Okay, yeah, I'm way over it. Okay,
Nailed
it. So I can format this as table. And I just want to make sure that all my data goes into a table. It has headers. If you ever do need to edit this again, the easiest way to edit this, I found, is if you're out here doing stuff and you're like, oh man, my table's too small and my table's too big, you can come back in, and whenever you click on a table, you see this little up here, your ribbon, it adds table tools in design. If you click on that, you get the resize table feature, and you can have this guy back. And so Jeff said 720, so I'll make it 750 just to make sure, because the header, who knows, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't really matter because I'm not going to show this table. I just need it to cover the whole table. All right, so now that it's a table, I can use the column designations rather than the like H1, H2, that kind of stuff. So I can say I want to sum for my total these three guys. So you can see how it says sum table 1, Boston, London. Also, if you don't like typing out table 1, because you might have to do that quite a bit, you can actually come in and rename this guy. So if you go to your name manager under formulas, you can rename him by editing. Maybe. Yeah. And say, I don't know, I want to call it data because that's easier for me to type. And once you do that, it'll update everything that you've done so far to data, and then whenever you type in formulas later, you can just use data to access this table rather than, let's say, cells or table 1, because maybe you have multiple tables and you need them all to name different things. Now, to get the date, what I do is I do equals date, and then, let's see, I do, is that what I do? Yeah, okay. So year, comma, month, comma, day, and then to add the hours, it's on 24-hour scale here, and so I think I need to do a plus hour. Hour divided by 24 would get me the hours. So 1 o'clock a.m. would be 1/24th of a day, kind of thing. And then if I want the minutes as well, I would need to do minute divided by 60, and that should get me the exact date. All right. So date, year, month, day is the format, and then you can add the fraction of a day onto the end of it, if that makes sense. And so that's how I get the date, and then I want to make sure that this is formatted as a date as well. And so, yeah, I can do long date. That's fine. If I really care about what's going on here, maybe I want with the time, and we'll see that whenever I populate the data. So that's great. I have the date now because it was a nightmare trying to figure out how to get my date. I was folding laundry one day, and I was like, this is what I need to do. I figured it out, but make sure all of these are numbers. Do that real quick. Number, and I actually want number with no decimals. This guy, I still needed, like, date was great, but I still needed some kind of reference for some of the formulas that I'm going to do in order to be a little, I don't know. Date's hard to work with for me at times. Maybe it's just me, but I'm better at numbers, I guess. And so what I wanted to do was kind of like I guess it's Unix timestamp, right? That has milliseconds since 1970.
Yeah, since epoch. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I kind of did, but I didn't care about milliseconds because our data's not that fast. So what I do here is I make a timestamp of the date minus date 1970, comma 1, comma 1, and then I do times, and it's 24 times 60 times 60. And so I just get a number here that represents how long since 1970. So that's good. So let's save this, and hopefully I didn't break my tenuous connection. But let's see. So save. Let's see if I can do it without closing it, maybe. And so what I want is a little success menu to pop up. And it didn't. So I did something. Maybe I took too long. I don't know. But I find that after I've made like a huge edit like this, sometimes it just doesn't work. And so what I want to do is I'll just do a file save as, and then I'll bring it back in. So this is definitely a warning. This can happen to you. It happens to me all the time. So let me call it Fusion Friday Energy Report Recover. I don't know, too many names, but it'll get the job done. So now I can close it without fear of losing everything, and then I'll just come into Properties and go find, there it is, Open. Okay. And now what I need to do is I need to tie this XLSX report into my variable trigger notification, and then I'll trigger it and get some data in there to make sure everything came in correctly. All right, so save, and let's see where we're at. So trigger notification. And so if I go back up to notifications, new tab, add remove columns, modified, flip it a couple times, and refresh. Did I get an error down here? No. It should be okay. What did I miss? So I've got XLSX, yeah, okay. This is all working. That looks okay. Let me try to trigger it one more time. I have had it where it has errored out on me, and I've had to restart the machine to get things to work again. So hopefully that's not the case, but maybe it is. Oh, maybe this is my problem. Yeah, give me an error. Okay. Invalid token inline 1 column 13. So maybe I have an issue over here. Let's see if that's a helpful message, because I haven't gotten a helpful message, like that helpful of a message before. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, I don't have 13. Line 1, column 13. So let's look. maybe I can spot it. Oh, you know what it is? I didn't put quotes around these. I don't know why. You have to put quotes around these. Man. No, I made a little cheat sheet over here for all of this, and let me see if my cheat sheet has this, because it's really disappointing. Yes, of course it does. I just didn't copy it from my cheat sheet. All right, so let's save that now. Oh, gosh. Yeah, okay, there's the success. So you have to kind of hold your breath and be like, please give me the success, or else I would have to open it and do it again. It was a small change, though, so I was willing to take the risk. All right, now let's trigger and refresh. Sort by latest to greatest. There it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drop this over here so I don't have to go back to it. All right, now let's see what it gave us. All right. So you can see here it lined up. There's all my 2020s. There's my month and my days, my hours. Hours interesting. I guess that makes sense. 0 would be 12. Okay. Minutes I don't need because it's always 0, but if you needed it, there's my Boston, Hong Kong, London, and my total is working. My timestamp seems to be working. I'm in a good place. All right. So this is my data sheet. So let's rename it. Data. And this is something that you'll probably blank out later on. But now I usually start building an analysis sheet. So analysis. So here I'm going to show you some of the techniques that I've been learning and using and that kind of stuff. So the first one, I haven't put in a report yet, but I think it would be really cool and handy, is the ability to add a scroll bar so that you can limit how much data you're showing at any one time. I'll have to figure out exactly how I want to do it eventually, but I'll show you the technique, and we'll see it work. So basically, what I might want is, I don't know. I probably need to reorder some of this and put like date over here instead of over here, and that would make this easier. But maybe I'll just show the 3 energy values and have some amount of them. All right. So if I wanted to add a scroll bar, what I would do is go to developer, and if you don't have this developer menu system, you can add it doing I don't know, when customize the ribbon, you can add developer in, because I think by default it's not. But if you insert, you can insert a scroll bar, pop it in, it comes with this big fat nasty looking thing.
The opposite of a slider.
Right? Yeah, you don't want a White Castle slider here.
The mega burger.
Yeah. So you get this scroll bar, which is great. If you hold Alt, I'm starting to learn hotkeys too, which is great. So if you hold Alt, it kind of snaps to your grid system that you have. And so you can snap that in. Let's see. So let me do, I want these 3, right? So I'm just going to pop those 3 in. So maybe this is my display, which is, it's not going to be my display, but I'm just showing you. If you want to customize this guy, let's see, I'll do 1, 2, 3, 10, so 12. So first of all, I want to shrink this and just show 10 lines at a time. Hold Alt. Oh gosh, all over the place. There. All right. And then I want to do format control. And so what I want is current value. Let's make 1, I guess. Minimum value can be 0, sure. Maximum value, it would be, maximum value is going to be the number of rows that you want to show minus the number of rows you're showing. I'm going to leave it at 100 because I really don't care to count however many rows I actually have. That's fine. Incremental change, if you go and arrow down, how many rows do you want it to change by? Page change, okay, sure. I guess that's page down, page up. Shortcuts, I don't know. Cell link, this is important. So I need to go and designate a cell somewhere that it's going to store a value in so it can change. All right, and that should be it. So now it's at 1, right? And if I arrow down, yay, it's changing that, but it's not doing anything over here. So what I need to do is write a formula over there in order to get data to show up. And so there's 2 different ways you can do this. I don't really know which one's better. I've been told that index is better than offset, but we'll try offset first because index is a little bit more complicated. But basically you want your offset should be your reference. So it should be, I believe, this guy right here. And then, comma, you need your reference cell that you made over here. And you can lock, you can lock that guy in. To lock in a cell, kind of neat, you just hit F4, which usually close down Windows like that. But in this case, it locks your cells. So, bonus. And then where do you want to start?
Just don't hit the Alt key when you hit F4.
Oh, is that what it is?
That'll still close. Yeah, Alt F4. Yeah.
Ooh. And so now I have 250, which should be Boston 250, right? Okay. And then if I drag this, I believe, and drag this over, I've got all those values, and now I can arrow down and see all the different values through there. So this is like if I make, let me show it back again. What I'm thinking, at least, is maybe down here I make another widget that's just a table, and so it has to fit in this particular slot. And so you want to scroll down and see the different, at what time, what was it doing, that kind of thing. So that's where I might put something like that. All right. The other way to do this is a little bit more complicated. Instead of that offset formula, you can use index, and I'll just show you the index formula. I won't actually do it. So on index, the first one is the range, and so you want this to cover the entire range that you want to show, all right? And then the next one, oh gosh, lost it. All right, the next one is your reference, so it would be that E12 in this case, plus a row that's locked, usually this one, I think, and then the range of rows. So it's really complicated. And then you have to -1 to get things to line up, and then columns. I'm told this one's better, and it's less volatile, but man, is it a burden to set up. So right now, I think I'm going to try to just use offset and see where I get, and maybe switch to index someday. I don't know. All right, so that's a cool little scroll bar thing. So the next thing I want to kind of demo and show, this might be the last thing we'll see, is this drop-down piece. So not that, that's cheat sheet. There it is. This one. So in this case, so I'm using these drop downs on almost every one, and it's really cool because you can say, oh, well, what was the green KPIs today? Oh, 13. I saved 13 tons of CO2 emissions. That's amazing. Or how many trees did I not chop down, I guess, to run my plant today? So that's a really cool feature, I think. Kind of makes it more interactive, kind of fun. So what you want to do here is you want to set up your the choices. So let me get my example so I can copy stuff in, so I'm a little quicker this time. And so maybe you have, and I usually do this all in the analysis layer so that it's all in one spot, and I'm going to hide it later so I don't need it. So period. I have today, this week, this month, this year, last 24 hours, last 7 days, last 30 days, last 12 months. Okay, so this is where I'm picking from. And then what I want to do is I want to insert a combo box form. I don't know why they come in so big. Who on earth needs a combo box that big? Maybe I'm zoomed in too far. So here, format controls, you have a few settings that you need to do. One is the input range. So that's this guy, so I need to say I want to choose from that. The next is a cell link, so much like our scroll bar, we have a cell link, so maybe I'll put that down here. And then finally, how many items are in my list? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I already knew. Great. And so now what this does is I have those and I can switch to it. And so whenever I pick one, it changes the cell reference down here. And so this is my list reference. So maybe I can make this all blue. I don't know, highlight this somehow. I wish there probably is a shortcut to just make a box around something, but I have no idea what it is. Okay, so now that I have this, what I can do is I can use this data to start.
There's the box around something. Sorry, I'm so 2 minutes late finding it on your screen. Yeah, right there.
Oh, it's Control Shift and. I made a box, but I had to go and pick it. I wish there was a hotkey. And there is, Control Shift and.
Control Shift and.
Easy to remember or do. So I need like 3 hands to do that. All right. So then what I can do is let's work on, let's say, I don't know. I'll do one of these. Let's do energy by zone. So energy by zone is kind of a cool one. And so I'll have Boston, Hong Kong, and London. And this is my kilowatts. Energy in kilowatts, energy kilowatt, whatever. And then what you do here is I started using some product because I was trying to watch YouTube videos and figure out what I needed to do and all that kind of stuff. And so I was using some product and it just fell apart. I couldn't do it. I don't know. It's not for me. And so the one I settled on is actually some ifs. And so I'm using some ifs, and then I reference my table. And so let me pull up my cheat sheet so I don't look dumb here again. In this case, it's something like, oh gosh, which one is it? So it's data is my my table, and then maybe I want Boston, since it's my Boston. And it does have some IntelliSense down here. You see, like I'm half typing it in. You can choose those or tab, and it'll fill it in for you. So that's really nice. Now that it's a table, that's why you make it a table at the very beginning. Table, and you name your table. It makes these a lot easier to think about and do. So the next one is my criteria range. And so if we're doing today and this week and that kind of thing, I need a criteria range that relates to my timestamp. Is the easiest way that I've found to do that. And then finally, I need to say, what is it, the criteria, so criteria range, but then criteria, what is the criteria? And so here what you do is you type in like greater than or equal, less than or equal. And so in this case, maybe today would be greater than or equal, and then some date, all right? And so we need to figure out what date this is. So let me, yeah, I've got issues. Let me do that for now. And then what I need to do first is figure out the date. And it needs to be in that same timestamp formula. So maybe this would be date, this would be my timestamp. And again, I have no problem, just cluttering up my analysis box and making all sorts of formulas and everything, because I'm going to hide it. So as descriptive as you can make this so that you can come back later and fix it or change it, the better, right? And so in this case, what I want to do is let's do this down here. And I'm going to highlight this to say those are all kind of together. So that would be orange. And so I want to use index, which isn't that the one I scoffed at earlier? Isn't this, what did I try to use index up here? Let's see. Yeah. So I'm using index down here. It's a lot easier down here though. So I don't know. It makes sense to me in this sense. Basically all you have to do is highlight this guy up here and say F4 to lock it in. And then it's your reference, so this guy. I think it's... Oh, that's weird. What did I do? So that gives me this. Oh, you know what I want? I want, sorry, there's other stuff. So date. Let me go and do this real quick. This one. This one. All right, so what I ended up doing, I think, here is I have today's date somewhere. And this was kind of a trick as well, getting today's date. So you want a date from when the report was created, not when it was open. So if you just did, like, date now, it would work really great, or whatever it is. I don't even know if it's not.
Sure, but every time someone opens the document, it would update that date.
Right. I think it's maybe today. Is that what it is? Today. So this is not what you want. Some formula that I was trying to use, and it worked great until I let the report sit for a day or two, and then I reopened it, and I was like, well, that doesn't work anymore. And so what I ended up doing is stealing it out of that guy right there. I used this as my current date because it should be the last piece of data that's in my report, the most recent one. So I just say now equal to that guy and enter. And then I need to format it as a date. There it is. So today. And then here what I do is for each of these periods I need to calculate what the date should be for that. So in this case it would be, I think that's one of my problems, I guess, because that shouldn't be the right calculation. What I like to do is I like to suck out. So today would be this year, right? F4 to lock. Month would be same thing, and then day would be same thing. And so this would give me the same date, but it would take off the time in this case, because if I change my format here, it probably has time in it, like so. And then if I change that same thing here, it's 12 a.m. And that's the one I want, right? Because I just want today's period. And so similarly, this would be equal to this minus weekday. So you can see how this takes up a little time trying to go and figure out all these to make these work. So this would be something like this, I believe, escape, something like that, where it's today, this month, this day, minus whatever the weekday number is, would give you Sunday. And so, of course, it doesn't work because this is wrong. So this should be that, and then my reference spreadsheet is just a little different than what I'm making here. All right, so now that's 8/29, which was Saturday. So maybe you have to massage it a little bit and add one. I don't know. Up to you how you want to do that. But then down here, I chose the wrong range. How am I doing on time? 8 minutes. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. So instead of this range, I would want this range, F for it. And so if I choose today, I get that business, which is that day. And if I choose this week, I get Saturday, August 29th. Great. And then here, I do my fancy conversion to timestamp. So I do this day minus date 1970 times 86400. And so now I have a timestamp, and that's what I use right here with an ampersand. This guy, boom. And so what this is doing is it's summing all of the data in my table, under Boston column, that matches my timestamp is greater than what's ever in here. So if I then come in here and I say, well, I just want today's, today it's consumed 2856. This week it's consumed 40,064, that kind of thing. And so then I can just copy this. And so this is Hong Kong. This is London. And I didn't lock my reference, so that's why it's zeroing out on me. So shove those back, and now they should all change. There's today's values, there's this week's values. And so then I could make a chart really quick. So if I insert, recommended chart, great. Let's do this one, because it's fancy. array. And then here, if I say today, you can see it resizes. And then if I say this week, it'll resize and show this week. All right.
That's slick.
So that's how you make these interactive dashboard reports where the user can come in and select what time period and that kind of stuff with just the normal data. Now, if you just wanted to make a static one, you could do a lot of this in EBO by determining how many days or changing your trend log or anything like that. But I have a feeling that this might be a little bit, you don't have to know exactly what your customer wants because you're just saying, give me all your data, and then you're letting the customer choose at the end game what data is relevant to him, rather than having to set up exactly, well, this report only does last month. You can say, well, this report can do anything. I can see last 12 months. I can do period over period charts, all sorts of fun stuff there. One more thing. I tend to build, I guess two more things. I tend to build my presentation layer and analysis layer with data like this. So I populate the data, then I build all this. Well, I still have to go and put that all back in to this guy. Oh, well, let me save this so I don't lose it. So file, save as report testing, and you will be Fusion Friday Demo 2. Save. And so now I should be able to open him. So this is my... What? Oh, this guy, sorry. That's what I meant. So this is still my format XLSX, right? He doesn't have all the changes I've made so far because I've been building it on the report so that I can see the data and see that it works. I need to now come in and create that second sheet, copy all this stuff over, fix any references that break, and then it'll work for reals. All right. One more.
So you're merging the template from your original version with all the analysis from your modified version, so you have the analysis in the template.
Exactly. And then so that at that point it populates your data, all your analysis gets populated and added, and then your presentation layer it also gets added. One more thing that I'll show you on an already live template or already live system, just so that it's easier to show, because it's a really slick example. Let's see, Thursday demo, reports, energy, XLSX. Oh, I already have it open. What is it? This one. So you can see here, I'm showing all the guts. So you can see where my drop downs are pulling data from here. I've got 3 drop downs that look at this. So this is all my reference data, my reference cells. And then I have period over period, PVP. And so here I'm calculating where I pick for the PVP and the from. These I think are all dead. I don't actually need those anymore. This is what I showed you a second ago, is how to calculate it using some ifs, and I think this one is populating my pie chart here. This one is populating my bar chart that we just made. I duplicated that for the demo. This one is populating my green KPIs, and so I need to do a better job of kind of labeling this, I think. This one's very similar. It's just almost the exact same equation, but then I do divide by 2,000, because I looked it up and it said a kilowatt hour is about a metric pound. So divide by 2,000, I get metric tons. I don't actually know if that's right, but that's what the interweb said. Now, the other one that's here, this big gray block, this is the beast I've been working on. This is populating data for this guy right here. And so you can see today over yesterday versus today over same time last week, this week over last week. This one's tricky. It's not like the others in the fact that I need to have different x-axes for each one. And so here you can see my x-axis here is hours in the day, but then over here it's days of the week, days of the month, months of the year. So I have all these different formats here and all of these different calculations. Again, maybe I'm doing it too complicated. Maybe I could scale back a little bit or simplify things somehow. But it's about the same equation. It's sum ifs has been working for me great. Whatever column out of the table, so in this case it's the total, timestamp is greater than or equal to some value, and this is getting it calculated over here, and then this one is less than or equal to some value. And so what I'm doing, like here, it's an hour at a time, so it's last hour up to this hour, and probably one of these shouldn't be equal, but it's okay. I'll have to fix it. but yeah, so that's how this is working. I made a table for each of those, and so here you can see all the tables that are getting populated by all that data, right? From here, once you have all the tables populated, there is a nifty little tool called the camera tool. So there's a camera up here. You may not have it. You may have to go and do this little drop down and add it or something. I don't know. But what it does is when you snapshot a cell, you can make a copy of that cell. So anything, oh gosh, I lost the cell. It's one of these. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to be a live snapshot of that information. And so what this is doing is I came in and I've named these different cell blocks. So if I cover the whole range, you can see that the name of that range is energy 1. And then like this should be energy 2. So if I cover that whole range, energy 2. And in my formulas name manager, I have all those names here for all these 8 charts. And then I have another named range called energy selection. And energy selection has a formula in it called choose. And it's using the drop down is referencing a cell, and that has a number in it. And that number chooses which named range is showing for energy selection. And then I come over here, and if I type up in here energy selection, cross my fingers. Did that not work? Oh, sorry, I typed it in the wrong place. My bad. It needs to be over here. Energy selection. Oh, and it gives me a little finishing tip. Boom! So this camera cell that I have is taking a picture of that range and popping it up over here. So now whenever I choose a different graph, the camera is showing me those other ranges. Super slick. Weird, crazy, magic, voodoo, Excel stuff. But it works, and it's fun. There are a ton of these little things. And so we are working on how to best get you this information, because I think a lot of the data, a lot of the tutorials out there in just the general wild are great. Not all of it is going to pertain to our stuff. I think we have a subset of the Excel need out there, and so we're debating whether we want to just send you off to a really neat Excel YouTube channel, or maybe us make some sort of channel that has these tips and tricks that you can go to, or maybe we should pull it into actual training. If you guys have feedback, I would love to hear your feedback on, is this needed? Is this necessary? How you would want to consume it? Is it just a series of videos? Is it digital job book? Is it a class, virtual class, in-person class? What do you want to see to try to figure out how to build nice looking reports? Are these overkill, right? We need your feedback to know how to tailor this stuff, because it is. There's a lot of information here that we want you guys to have. I don't know, and I think it'll be different because you guys on this call are experts. We're going to have a lot of new people coming in as well that need to know. Maybe they've never touched Excel, because I mean, a lot of this has been 0 to 60 for me. I've of course touched Excel, but nothing to this extent of knowing these tips and tricks. So let us know.
That is awesome. Yeah, your feedback would be invaluable. But Mike, this has been a great glimpse into how we can do some pretty awesome stuff inside Excel, and with EBO being able to just dump data into Excel, really you can take over the world by doing slick stuff in Excel now.
Yeah, no, it's
Awesome.
pretty neat.
Very cool. So any closing questions from Mike before I switch gears and spend 60 seconds sharing the results of my test for Jim? All right. Well, again, and if you're watching the recording, oh, I see a raised hand. Yeah, feel free to speak up. Or maybe it was a high five. So
I like
yeah.
David's Excel named ranges are my jam.
Yeah. You know, I hadn't seen that before this. So thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I had no idea.
You've enlightened me. Awesome. Okay, so what I'll do real quick is I'll just show. Mike, if you've got anything else to show, feel free, or else you can stop screen sharing so we can go into big video mode. And then I will show you guys. Jim, you had asked about doing set point changes between a living space sensor and a mobile app. Let's see. You kind of, man, this is painful. Holding stuff up to the camera. Hopefully you guys aren't offended. So I have got my Engage app, and I've got my living space sensor. I had to bind it a little differently. I'm now using the temperature set point on the display object of the living space sensor that I have one installed, and I've changed my binding from the Engage app to point to that temperature set point. So it almost works the way we'd hoped. It's very close. The trick is the Engage app seems to look up the current set point when you connect to the device, but then it doesn't display it real time. So let me show what I mean real quick. If I change the set point here on my living space sensor, it's currently 70. Tough to see, but 70. And then we change it up to 76. Then with the Engage app, I see my room is detected, my Fusion Friday 20, and then I see the set point is currently 76. And so then I can change it down to 73. And then here on the living space sensor, I can see that now the set point is 73. So that's looking good. The only thing is, when the Engage app is currently logged in, if I make another set point change on the living space sensor, so I go to 74, I don't think the Engage app right now is able to see that change. It's still showing 73. I need to actually back out and then reconnect to the room, which will pull it fresh. So now it's showing 70. So it almost works the way we hoped. Set point changes on the living space sensor are real time. You can see what the current temperature set point is. You can change the current temperature set point. The only thing is with the Engage app, it assumes that the value that it saw when it launched is still the current value, unless it's changed it. And then you refresh it by backing out of the room and then reopening. So, does that answer your question, Jim?
Yeah, that's really good. Do you happen to know if you minimize that app, does it lose communication with the Bluetooth, or is it maintained?
Let's try it real quick. So I minimize it, I'm doing other stuff, and then I open it again, and it looks like it's still connected. So granted, I only did it for about 10 seconds. So I don't know what the time threshold is for that connection going to stay.
Mhm.
Yeah, great question. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. It's been a fun adventure for Mike and I doing Mondays with Mike and Fusion Fridays. We're looking forward to having additional sessions when Mr. Fisher twists our arm here in a few weeks. Do subscribe to that post on the community, and then when we do schedule another session, you'll be sure to get a notification. In the meantime, everybody have a fantastic weekend. Great, hopefully a long weekend for everyone. And we'll look forward to being in touch. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Jeff.